This weekend, NASCAR is back on track, and I'm excited to grab my favorite snack, my favorite cold beverage, sit in front of the TV, and watch my favorite drivers put on a show. But before we hit the track again, I wanted to take a couple of minutes to look back at some of the headlines that have came as a result of COVID-19. First off, I want to look at Darlington Motor Speedway. Now, it wasn't but just a couple of years ago that the future of the track was in question. Ratings were down, attendance was down. A lot of people were thinking that it's just a matter of time before Darlington is just a historic track and no longer on the schedule. But as a result of COVID-19 causing some tracks to not be able to have the races happen there, Darlington now at the moment is going to see at least 3 races this year. Which is pretty awesome. As someone who is from South Carolina, I love having a track that's in-state, still be a part of NASCAR, but also just, if you look at the history of NASCAR, Darlington is just one of those tracks that has always been a crown jewel event. Next up, the Pro Invitational Series, put together by NASCAR and iRacing. Now, this started off as just a fun idea to help people get their minds off the current situation, but it quickly became a pretty big deal. It was able to introduce the world of iRacing and esports to so many fans that have never heard of it, or at the very least had just heard it in passing and didn't really know what it was about. But they were able to see just how real the racing feels. We were also able to see a lot of popularity come back for North Wilkesboro Speedway. People getting interested in seeing the track and seeing how we can help revive the track itself. It also shed a spotlight on some drivers that not a lot of people paid attention to. You know, your Garrett Smithleys, your Timmy Hills. You know, a lot of those drivers, they weren't a household name, but now when we go back to racing, you're going to see people still paying attention to those drivers and seeing where their careers are going, which is an awesome opportunity for the drivers, but also for the teams to now attract sponsorships because now people are invested in those drivers. Next up, Kyle Larson. At the beginning of the year, a lot of people wondered if Larson would challenge for a championship this year. And at the end of the year, would we see him possibly going over to powerhouse teams such as Hendrick Motorsports and taking over the 48 car, or maybe heading over to Stewart Haas Racing and joining forces with Tony Stewart? But unfortunately, due to some bad choices, we've went from wondering if Kyle Larson would challenge for a championship to wondering, will Kyle Larson compete in another race in the Cup Series this year? The future of Kyle Larson is a very interesting one. You know, people have made whole videos on that, so I'm not going to sit here and ramble on and on about it. But I think that it is one of the biggest headlines to come from, if not the biggest, to come from the whole COVID-19 situation. And finally, with Kyle Larson losing the 42 ride, Matt Kenseth stepping in to fill the seat. You know, when the whole Kyle Larson situation happened, well, first off, at the beginning of the year, no one thought the 42 car would be vacated. Then when it was vacated, you know, a lot of people automatically assumed, oh, well, Ross Chastain will step in. Maybe Jamie McMurray will step in to take over the ride. But I didn't see anyone talking about Matt Kenseth. And now, you know, 2 months later, we're sitting here looking, Matt Kenseth has an opportunity to win the championship this year. You know, no one saw that coming in February. There were no betting odds, you know, for Matt Kenseth. You know, no plans for him to compete in a race, let alone compete in a car that can win races, that could potentially make it to the Final Four. So I'm pretty pumped up to see where that leads.